Okay,
We're
good
on.
evening, everyone, and welcome to another DPT Student Chat. We are joined tonight by physical therapist Jerry Durham. Jerry is a co-founder of San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy with multiple locations in the Bay Area. Jerry is now in the role of Chief Sales Officer and is one of the biggest voices on Twitter, stressing the importance of being able to sell as a physical therapist, which is what we will be discussing tonight. If you have any questions, please post them on Twitter using the hashtag DPTStudent, and we'll set aside time at the end for questions. Jerry, can you start just by giving us a little bit of background about your career and how you wound up as Chief Sales Officer and what that role entails?
Yeah. Thanks for asking me to be on, you guys. I appreciate it. As most people know, I love having conversations with the DPT. Well, any students, to be honest, but the DPT students in particular. So I started 21 years ago in physical therapy. I mentioned to you guys before we went live, I've worked in every single setting you can imagine except for peds and neuro rehab. Slowly but surely over time realized what I really loved about physical therapy was the relationship with the patients. What I didn't like was relationships with my bosses. And finally, after about 6, 7 years, no, about 5 years out, my wife kindly pointed out after I'd come home complaining for about 5 years straight that it probably wasn't the people at each job I had gone and moved into. Probably. Now, but she was very polite about it. And that started that snowball down the hill of establishing my own business, which even after then still took about another year to 2 years because I wasn't comfortable doing that. But that was officially started in private practice on my own about 14 and a half years ago, and then partnered up with my business partner, Sturdy McKee, and we formed what is now San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy 13 years ago, June 1st. And that's where we are today. And how did I become Chief Sales Officer? About 3 years in, I got really, no, 3 years, 4 years in, I got really frustrated because I got burned out seeing patients. I didn't get burned out physically, I got burned out psychologically because I didn't like sitting across from people who didn't want to follow through on what I had asked them to do. And I came to my business partner and told him I didn't want to treat patients anymore. And he did a great job talking me through and coaching me through finding out what I really loved. And what I really loved was talking about physical therapy and selling physical therapy, for lack of a better term. And it was that day that I moved into that role and became, the person who was in charge of getting the word out about San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy. And here we are today.
Awesome. So what would you say is the first step that a DPT student can take to begin networking, and how can they set themselves apart in the process?
So the good thing is, and I'm not trying to make myself sound any older, but I do know what it's like to come out of school and not have access to things like social media and the same networks that people have available to them today. And let's face it, when a lot of these new technologies came out, I wasn't skeptical about them. I sat there and shrugged my shoulders because I was like, what can this do for me? I have no use for this. I got on Facebook, and that was short-lived because with my self-diagnosed ADD, looking at people's baby pictures and having to read the stories just didn't bode well, and I didn't see a use for me. And then Twitter popped up, and I'm like, my brain just went, you're limited to 140 characters. At the time, you couldn't post photos in the timeline. And so I said, I'll check this out, and I think we all know how that went. And it suited me personally, my personality well, and so that's what I've ran with, and that's how I've managed to network out even more. Because, let's face it, even before social media, if there was a networking event, a business event, a physical therapy event, I was there because I've always wanted to meet other people. Mm-hmm. But I think what you guys need to leverage, and by you guys, I mean everybody from a first year, and Tyler can vouch for this, I met Tyler on Twitter before he even got into PT school.
Me too.
I think, had you gotten in yet? Had you gotten in? Okay. So I met you both on Twitter prior to PT school. You want to talk about networking and starting to build a brand, right? So here you are just getting into PT school. You guys are already talking to people in the profession. I guarantee you in 2 years, when I got out of school, I had to go 2 years. When I got out of school, I had maybe talked to, not counting my clinical, well, let's count the clinical affiliates, I had maybe made personal contact with 10 PTs my whole life. Now, with the platforms we have, whether it's Facebook, I'm not saying which is best, I'm just saying I only know Twitter. With the access we have to social media and these platforms, I mean, you guys, whether you know it or not, you're making contacts with hundreds of other physical therapists on these medias. And networking is not the same as it used to be, because you guys can do your networking when you don't even know it. I had, just as a quick note, I was on Twitter for probably 2 or 3 years, and I'll never forget, I really didn't understand the value of Twitter. I was like, do I interact with everybody? Do I retweet? What do I post? One day, out of the blue, I get a direct message from a physical therapist in New York, and here I am in California, and it was short and sweet. It just said, Jerry, I just wanted to let you know I've been following you for the last couple of years. I really appreciate what you're doing for the profession, and I really love all your baseball tweets. And that was the day it really hit me that that social media is a far-reaching network to get the word out about what you like, about who you are, about what you're interested in. And so that day really hit me, and you know, I was sharing some stories. Jocelyn reached out to me. I remember Jocelyn reaching out to me, and then we had a phone conversation. Tyler reached out to me, and then when it was time for his interview, we talked like 3 or 4 days before your interview, Tyler, by phone.
Yeah. It was awesome. We had a great conversation. I really took a lot of what you said into that interview, and something worked, because I'm sitting in the classroom, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll never forget when you told me to call you like 30 seconds after you retweeted my tweet. And I was like, I have to call this guy now. How can I just blow him off? He's a PT.
So Jerry, that actually kind of leads me to a next question. You mentioned that you really enjoy selling PT, and I've noticed through Twitter and other avenues that you do such an amazing job, like you just talked about, of reaching out to students and up-and-coming students. Why do you have such a passion for us?
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. You know, that you're the first one that's actually asked me that question directly, and that's a really good question. Here is the 100% honest answer of this. I've been doing this 21 years. I have spent most of my career dealing with people who have been out of school for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And what I've found over my 20 years out of school, including myself, it's very difficult to convince somebody who's been doing something one way that it might not necessarily be the best way. And not only is it difficult to convince them of that, it's difficult to even have a conversation about what some other options may be, because of course we all know best. And what I have found over the last year, 2 years, by striking up conversations with the DPT students, is you guys are asking questions that are blowing my mind, because I would have never asked those questions during my years in school and during my first 5, 10 years out of school. So what I see in the DPT students is an ability to want to learn what can you do to better the profession, as opposed to most of the people I talk to, they have the solution, even though they've been doing the same thing for umpteen years and it ain't changing. So that's why I like engaging with you guys. You guys are thinking for lack of a better term, thinking outside of a box that no one else is getting out of, and that's the solution to healthcare, by the way.
Nice.
Can you think of any examples of some of those outside of the box thoughts?
Yeah, great. Had this conversation, I won't use her name, but I had a conversation with a student on Twitter who posted something about a week ago. I'm a big believer in giving the healthcare consumers choice, and that if we give the healthcare consumers choice, that whatever you're delivering, whatever I'm delivering, people can make an upfront decision about where they want to spend their money, plain and simple. And some people are calling that cash PT. I don't like cash PT because I think it kind of pigeonholes it. I just call it business, evidence-based business. There was a student whom I didn't know as a student, first couple of tweets I had with her, but she started asking questions about cash PT in rural areas, so outside of the big cities, of where 99% of PTs say, yeah, Jerry, you're out of network. practice is great, but it won't work anywhere else because you're in San Francisco. She reached out to me and started saying, what do you think about the rural area? And I asked her a question back. I said, well, actually, you're in that area. Tell me what you think. She threw out 2 or 3 comments just in a row that blew my mind. I'm like, never thought of it that way. That is great. And everybody always tells me it won't work in those areas. Always go down a path of, oh, this is why it won't work. She went down a path of going, well, I'm not exactly sure, but it seems to me if we did A, B, it'd probably work. And I said, wow, that's a great thought. Do you know anybody doing that? Yeah, there's a medical practice close by that are doing these 2 things. And it was just a conversation I've never had in 20 years. And I was having it with a student, you know, solving healthcare in America. She wasn't fixing PT. She was trying to figure out how to get good quality healthcare to an area of America that most people think it can't be delivered to.
That's actually leads me to a really good question. I've kind of heard some chatter on it through Twitter, but I've heard you specifically, Jerry, mention the idea of kind of looking to other businesses or other industries to really generate that conversation and kind of get that chatter going. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So when Sturdy and I, when we were growing our practice, the only resources we had, and I'm going to tell you this right now, here, you really want to date me? When we first started our business, the only thing on the internet was Napster, and you guys probably don't even remember what the frickin' Napster was.
Yes.
But I mean, it was Napster. There was no scheduling software. There was no EMR. There was no Google. There was no access to information like there is now. So we had to use our immediate network for our education and our experience. So we stayed within the physical therapy profession. And people we knew and the business leaders within PT were able to help us get to here. And we got to here. And what we found was when we strived for more and asked more questions, no one could get us past here. The same people who got us here could only get us here. And so we went back and asked the people the same questions, and we were like, we got the same answers. And then all of a sudden, Sturdy stumbles across a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, which is, there's 2 requirements. You have to have founded your own company. You have to be a founder or a co-founder. And you have to be doing $1 million a year in revenue. And at that time, we were. We had 5 practices. And so we said, why not? We went to a couple of their functions, found out they had 100 members. Of all those members, 2, not counting Sturdy and I, were involved in healthcare. And we said, this is the group we want to be in. And we learned more during that time. The past 5 years and the first 2 or 3 years in Entrepreneurs Organization, we learned more about business from non-healthcare people and how to apply marketing and sales and data collection and KPIs and all the rest of it to our business like nobody's business. And the funny thing was, I used to sit in the groups and think, this stuff doesn't apply to us. Then all of a sudden you'd hear a common theme, some software developer talking with a guy who does who has a manufacturing company. You're like, well, they're both practicing the same thing and their businesses are completely different. So Sturdy and I started incorporating some of this stuff, and it was growing our business. So that's where I really dug into it. And then, for God's sakes, who wouldn't listen to people like Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and Richard Branson? We could all individually name at least 2 people. By the way, pick your favorite local business who's not any bigger than your local community, and pick someone who's been running a business there for 20 years. You have something from them.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, that makes me think about all the times that I've learned from you to seek mentorship outside of other physical therapists. How would you suggest a PT student goes about actually forming a relationship like that? Like, how can we be beneficial to a business owner?
Oh, that's good. You know, you said, how can you be beneficial? So to answer that one first, how you can be beneficial is you can come prepared, because as I mentioned earlier, the questions you guys ask me make me a smarter business person, because you make me consider things that I haven't considered before. So that's how you can be beneficial. To answer that part, let's go back to the beginning. I think a couple of good places to start is, I always tell people find a physical therapist for your clinical mentoring, and then find someone outside of physical therapy for your, I don't know what we want to call it. I don't want to call it business mentoring because it doesn't need to be. I don't know. I want to just call it like life training. I don't know.
Personal development.
Sure. Let's call it, well, it can be professional development too, because we're going to call the other one clinical. But I guarantee you everybody knows somebody in their community, it doesn't have to be a business owner, who they look up to, who you believe is smarter than you, and you need to go to them and say, look, I'm looking for someone to help me grow professionally. I'm coming out into this professional world. I have a clinical side. I'm going to work on this. I need someone who can help me understand better what it's like to be in a working world, what it's like to be in a world where I'm going to have to negotiate a salary, where it's going to be like in a world where I'm going to have to sit down across from a manager and prove my worth, what it's going to be like in a working world where I have to deliver on accountabilities, right? And I need to learn from someone what it's going to be like. And I'm just using someone who's brand new as an example. And go to them and say, that's what I need. Can you help me with that? And the answer is yes or no. And if they're honest with you and say, look, I don't have the time to give you, you need to respect that, because you don't want someone who's going to waste your time. You want someone who's going to help you. But, you know, social media comes in handy too. I follow local people. You know, that's the beauty of being from California in the Bay Area. I follow a lot of marketing, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people on Twitter. And I have people I've reached out to, by the way. I've had phone calls with people developing the next freaking huge medical app that I emailed, and they called me back, right? Even that one phone call, I try to set it up perfectly so I'm not wasting their time. And I use that as a mentoring time. And what can I take from that call? What do I want to achieve from this call? What do I want to learn from this person?
That's one of the really nice things about Twitter, I think, is that it really has leveled the playing field on being able to contact just a wide variety of people, even if, like, someone who you might never otherwise have access to contact. And do you have, I mean, is there an etiquette that you would say in terms of contacting people just sort of out of the blue like that? I mean, I don't, obviously I'm not an entrepreneur. I can't be part of that entrepreneur organization that you were talking about. Where does the average student look for that?
I guarantee you, just about, if you got a hold, I'm glad you brought it up that way. If you got a hold of the EOs, by the way, it's international and it's national, so there's one in about there's everywhere. Kansas City, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Seattle, Arizona. I guarantee you, if you got a hold of their member list, there are a lot of people who would be happy to have a chat with you. There are a lot of people who would love to have interns too, whatever that means, you know, whatever you set up. We've actually had interns contact us, non-healthcare people that came in and helped us with marketing development for 2 weeks that needed some experience, stuff like that. So I guarantee you that those groups would help you. Again, sit down, think back to people you look up to, people you value. When they talk, you value what they say. That's the first group I would go to. That's what I'm always looking for. I also get on, like I said, on Twitter, leveling the playing field. You're exactly right. I've reached out to people individually on Twitter. Some have panned out, some haven't. But that's all right. Not everybody's going to say yes, right? And by the way, that's my philosophy. Again, it's like the Michael Jordan thing. You got to take 10,000 shots, so about 8,000 of them will go in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you only talk to one person and they turn you down, and you turn around and go the other way, that's your loss, right?
Right.
What else you got? What's Twitter say?
You know, we had just a second. I just lost it. I apologize.
I got one from, it basically, what do you tell a patient who's a lifelong chiro goer?
That was what I was looking for.
How PT can help them more.
Say it again.
What do you tell a patient who is a lifelong chiro goer who is skeptical of how PT can help them more?
Yeah, I see where that came from.
Yeah.
Punk ass.
Sell me, hashtag.
You know what? So here's my answer to that. Here is my God honest answer. First off, if someone, by the way, if someone's a lifelong chiro goer and I'm having a conversation with them in an environment that's outside of my practice, I'm not selling them. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not selling them. They're not the target market. People buying apples ain't buying frickin' Dells, and people buying Dells ain't buying apples, right? You have your target market. Life is too short. There's only so much time in a day. We all have 24 hours in a day. You lose money, you can get it back. You can't gain that time back. So I'm going to ask someone, oh yeah, you use the chiro. Do you get good results? Yeah, I'm really happy with my chiro. Well, guess what, people? My goal in life, my responsibility in life, my energy in life is not trying to convert, non-believers into believers. I'll leave that up to religion. But I got a target market, and my target market is people saying, hey, Jerry, I was told, or I'm coming to physical therapy. By the way, I've gone to a chiro before. I didn't get good results. Well, tell me what didn't work for you. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, this is what I have to offer you. Or Jerry, I've been to, by the way, I love asking that chiro question because I've run into more people in their life who've had shitty PT than I've had who've had shitty chiro. So as I like to tell everybody, let's deal with the shitty PT first.
So, Jerry,
I hope you got that. Was that more than 140 characters?
So you mentioned target markets, and it made me think, as DPT students, when we graduate, do we sort of have a target market in the sense of a target employer, the targeted kind of place that we should be looking to work for? And if so, how do we sell ourselves to them?
Great question. So your target market is wherever the heck you want to work, right? And whatever setting you want to work in, right? So that's step one. Step two is then you have to decide, right? Because here, let me step back. You got to remember, an interview is a two-way process, right? You're coming in asking me for a job, but if you aren't determining if you're a fit for me, you're selling yourself short. And you're going to set yourself up for failure. Because I could take you back to some bad interviews I've had to people who didn't even open my website. Which is curious, and actually that happens more times than it doesn't happen. So you call, someone goes through a questionnaire, goes through a phone screen, and you're like, so what do you think about my website? Oh, I didn't look at it. And so you're sitting across from me convincing me you're my future, and you value my practice, and you're going to help me build my practice and move towards this great vision that I've created, right? So I tell everybody, not only from my side is everybody not a fit for me, but you guys can't shoot out a resume to 200 frickin' clinics because everybody's not a fit for you. So first step is you have to prioritize what's important to me, and we'll skip that part for now, but decide what's important to you. Then once you narrow it down, Twitter, Facebook, great place to find places that are of a similar mindset, that you have a shared vision with. Interact with them, right? Interact with them. See what they're talking about. Ask them questions. Say, that's great you guys are doing that bike stuff in the community. I love doing cycling stuff. Share some cycling information with that clinic. Ask them if they have something to share with you. Reach out to a physical therapist in that clinic. Reach out to the owner of that clinic. Because, by the way, you reaching out to them as a second year or even third year student and setting that stage and building that relationship to the day your resume, by the way, your resume dropping on the desk will be a moot point at that point because they will already know you and they will already have a relationship with you and they won't even look at your resume, right? Because they'll know if you're the right fit or not. And it'll save you a lot of time and hassle. And the social media side and the social platforms available give you guys, not just me, give you guys excellent opportunities to find out who am I a good fit with. I constantly have. I've had 3, 4, 5 conversations with DPTs telling me, you know, what they want, what they want, what they want. And I'm like, go find it. Go find it. It's out there. And I even point them sometimes. Or they tell me I did this interview at this place. I'm like, why'd you even bother? You told me A, and you went and did B.
Yeah.
So you guys can be reaching out, looking on Twitter. By the way, ask other practice owners, hey, I'm interested in this. Do you know anybody in this area? Because I guarantee you they do. Mm-hmm. Right? But decide, this is all predicated on you guys setting your priorities, because I've had too many people sitting across from me who were not honest with themselves or about what they were looking for. But Facebook, Twitter, everything, what a great platform for you guys. All I had was magazine ads in the back of Advanced PT. That's all I had.
Wow.
And start calling around. I didn't know anything about anywhere I was applying.
So this is kind of an open-ended question to all of you. Do any of you know of any success stories of people finding employment or finding what they want in general via the new kinds of avenues for networking like Twitter?
Believe it or not, I do, but I'd love you guys. This is my favorite story, but I'd love to hear your guys' stories. I'm sorry to cut in on that, but I do have a great story.
I don't actually know of, I mean, I'm a third year, and so I feel like I would know perhaps maybe some of the older students ahead of me, and that might be the case. I don't know that people have gotten jobs, but I know that I've personally met a bunch of people through Twitter that I've done observations with, and while I'm in PT school, so I don't know about other people getting jobs per se, but
yeah. At the clinic that I worked for, the Cash PT clinic in St. Pete, my light turned off. We had multiple students actually end up and come doing observation and whatnot. Some of them interviewed for jobs, but nothing panned out. And I know Tyler and I got asked to do this DPT student chat before even starting school, just from being involved on Twitter.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to go with, Jocelyn, is just the kind of rock stars up with Jerry is, you know, the TJs and the Laurens and the Brooks that are just, I mean, absolute rock stars at really getting their name out there and asking the right questions and just kind of being a part of the ongoing conversation. For me personally, has kind of set the tone for kind of how it's done. So I just kind of take notes when they talk and really kind of see how they do it. And kind of passively get mentored by them, as well as folks like Jerry and other big hitters like, you know, Ann, Wendell, and other real big influencers in the Twitterverse.
I love that concept of passive mentoring.
Yeah, I've learned a lot just by kind of being what do we call them, lurkers? I think Brooke likes to call them lurkers. I lurk on all kinds of conversations, and I'll be honest, Jerry, I stalked the crap out of you, man. I've heard some real good conversations back and forth, and like I said, I'll take notes a lot of times and just kind of learn and listen to the conversation and how it unfolds, and I don't even have to participate. I can just sit there and listen, and I can learn a whole lot.
That's an interesting, that lurking thing, and that's what I learned when that PT from New York reached out to me. I was like, because everybody says, oh, social media, it's active, you have to engage, And anybody who heard my Twitter panel at CSM, one of my big themes was, no, you don't. No, you don't. That is completely false. You can go on Twitter, and you could probably follow 5 accounts and be smarter at the end of every single day by not engaging at all, meaning more than just opening it up and scrolling through. And so you don't have to engage. And it is, I call it, did someone say passive networking? Or you said passive?
It's Jocelyn.
Yeah, so I call it passive. I call it passive networking. Mm-hmm. So where networking was always this active term, I'm like, no, Twitter is an awesome place to network as an introvert, as a complete introvert. You don't have to engage with people. And by the way, the beauty of that, you can be very, very, very picky about who you want to engage with. I learned very on. I chose to get in a conversation that I shouldn't have been in, and I looked like a jackass when I got into it, and it was my own doing, and I should have stayed out of the conversation. It's someone I still follow. I love reading their tweets, but you know what? And it was clinical related. You know, it's like, what am I doing in a clinical conversation? I'm not the clinical guy. So it's very interesting that way.
Well, what's your story, Jerry?
You want a really cool story?
Hit me.
So Eric Chaconis out of St. Augustine reaches out to me one day. And I met Eric. This is great, too, because I have a lot of these reconnect stories. Eric Chaconis I met one year at a federal advocacy forum, if I'm not mistaken, in Washington, D.C. Where did we reconnect? Twitter. And I have a handful of people that I really enjoy spending time with and talking with, and I see as people who are solutions to healthcare that I reconnected with on Twitter. He says, he says, hey, can we have a chat? And so I call him, and he says, you know what? I would like you to speak to my class via Google Chat. And I'd never done it. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, look, I teach this class. I want you to come in for the last 30 minutes. I said, okay. He goes, you know, I want you to talk about private practice and advocacy. He says, I know you're really positive about the future of physical therapy. I really want you to talk about that. I said, okay. I asked a question during the class that freaked everybody out, and only 2 people answered. And I couldn't see everybody because the screen was kind of grainy, but I connected with about 4 or 5 people afterwards on Twitter. And one of them was one of the guys who answered my question. And we both knew we were on the same path. And from that day forward, we connected on Twitter. A lot of conversations by phone. Him reaching out to me, hey, I have a question. Never officially asked me to mentor him. I wouldn't want to say I was his mentor. I think that'd be disrespectful. We just got on the phone and had conversations. He gets out of school and he starts talking about what he wants to do in his career. And I said, you know what? And there were some steps in between. I said, you know what? I got a guy I want you to meet. He's in Florida. I said, I got a guy I want you to meet in Washington. And so I called this guy. I said, I got this guy for you. I'm going to put my ass out there and tell you you're going to want to talk to this guy, and this guy's going to be great for your business. Well, today he's working in Washington for this guy, and this was all predicated by a Google chat experience that evolved onto Twitter, that now I got him connected with someone else that now is his first job.
Wow.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. I look back on that. I told him we need to write a short paper one day of just the value. You know, could be a paragraph long. Actually, anything I do can't be a paragraph because I can't.
So, okay, Jerry, we hear a lot of chatter on Twitter about value. What do you think we can do, both as a profession overall, and more locally as PT students, to begin to generate value for PT?
So, remember, I come from a private practice setting, but this applies to any setting. So I don't care if hospital setting, the value, you know, Dr. Ridgway, Kyle Ridgway, I would tell you we're good friends now, and he's actually going to be in California in October speaking at our conference, right? Kyle can tell you how to sell the value of acute care PT. The important thing is to figure out what's important to the healthcare consumer, okay? We can sit here and tout outcomes. We can sit here and tout how great we are with low back pain. But unless you give a person a reason to seek out physical therapy, you know, and again, as the example, I'll use this as a positive example. This isn't a negative example. Why do people search out chiros for low back pain? They search them out because they value whatever the heck they're selling. And I don't know exactly what they're selling. So they value that. So instead of us bitching about the chiros getting away and treating all these people and ripping people off, we need to take a step back and say, why are these people going to the chiro? They see value in something the chiro gives. And it's no different than why do people go to McDonald's? I hate McDonald's. Well, they've got over 1 billion served people, so McDonald's is doing something right. And what McDonald's does right is McDonald's doesn't sell, their value proposition is not their hamburger. Their value proposition is price, low price. Their value proposition is time. Their value proposition is consistency. You're going to get the same thing every time you go in there. Their value proposition is your kids will get toys when you come here and buy a Happy Meal. Their value proposition is that frickin' playland out in front, right? So people don't choose McDonald's for the food. They choose McDonald's because of one of those reasons. I just read a great story on a bookstore that was about 5 miles outside of a city that did better business than the bookstores inside the city. And they didn't know why until someone finally said, we need to ask our customers why they're driving past the bookstores locally to come to us. And the reason everybody was driving to that bookstore that they asked was the cheesecake they sold in their cafe. So if you don't ask your customers what they value of what you do, then you don't know how to get more customers into your business to do what you need to do. Because you know those people are coming and buying books too, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got to figure out what the customers value. We need to ask them. And then we need to use that in our marketing to get them to call my practice, so then I can deliver this awesome, great outcome that I know I can deliver. But the outcome's a given. The outcome is not a value add. The outcome's expected. They can call anywhere for an outcome. That's why they call it Chiro. So give them a reason to call your practice. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
The only component I want you to elaborate on a little bit more is specifically as students, what can we do to kind of generate that value from our position since we're not clinicians yet? How can we contribute? Or can we?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. I was just thinking. You know what? I'll tell you what. It's not the way you think you can, and it's not the way the school tells you to sell it. You still have to figure out. So here's step number one. I say you guys ask great questions, right? I don't say I give great answers. You guys, I enjoy talking to you because you guys ask great questions. So step number one for you guys, when you're standing, as I said in my Chiro example, if I'm standing across from someone and they ask me about physical therapy, I'm going to start to ask them questions to drill down to find what is important to them in healthcare. If you are going to go and receive care for low back pain, what is most important to you? As they start to tell me what's most important to them, they're going to start to let me know if physical therapy is a solution for them. You know, if they say, look, a 5-minute treatment for the rest of my life, 3 days a week is a solution, you think you may know where to send them?
Okay, and now to go with that, we had someone ask this question on Twitter, Jonathan Walton, a little bit ago. What would you say to patients that say that they don't want to pay high copays, that they're, you know, that the cost is an issue for them, that they want cheap PT as it is? Yeah.
I saw that, and I favored that, and thank you, Jonathan, for asking that, because I wanted to deal with that. This comes back to each individual practice, right? I have to know what my unique value proposition is to anybody that calls. Because when someone calls me and I say, yes, I have quality physical therapy, do you think there is anybody else in town delivering quality physical therapy? Do you think they could have called 30 other clinics in town? I got a clinic less than a half a block away. I guarantee you he does quality physical therapy. So what am I selling, right? The bookstore's not selling books, people. Their customers are coming in for cheesecake. I have to ask, so what am I selling? I'm selling happy patients. I'm selling patients who are fully aware when they walk in the door what the cost is going to be. And from the day they arrive until the day they finish, they're not going to get any surprise bills. They are also going to arrive and get a PT for a full hour for an evaluation. They are also going to follow that same PT out for their whole course of care. They are never going to be turned over to an aide. they're never going to be turned over to an assistant. That's the way I set my practice up. That's my
phone tree,
right? It's a happy patient. And so they know all that from the moment they call. If you then on the other end of the phone, before you ever schedule an appointment, say, wow, that's really important to me, boom, guess what? You're going to come in and you're going to pay $150 a visit. And you're going to meet you're not going to meet, you're not going to care you have a $10,000 deductible, which I'm running into. Because you're going to say, you know what, my health is important to me. And all those things you said to me are important to me. So I'm going to come in and pay you $150 a visit. But I have to let them know up front what I'm selling. Because guess what? My best customers aren't the $20 a visit customers. Those are the people who cancel. Those are the people who self-discharge. Go on.
Yeah, I was just about to say, and to that point, those people who are paying a higher price each time they come, would you argue that they have, on the whole, generally speaking, better clinical outcomes?
Oh, boy. So I won't say that. I will say that's my new thesis, and I came up with that question exactly, Tyler, that you just asked about 2 months ago. And I finally found someone who's going to help me measure that, because we're going to pull out based on cost. Not cost of care. We're going to come out with based on cost per visit. Because remember, this is what's important to remember. This is what's so important. A $20 copay still has the insurance paying the balance, right? So it ain't about cost of care when it comes to me. It comes about how the cost, what it comes down to is money out of your pocket.
Establishing value.
Yeah, when you give me $20, your physical therapy just costs you $20. So that value equation has a $20 number in it, not a $150 number in it. So I've got someone who's going to start looking at the outcomes based on the out-of-pocket expense. And my argument is, my thesis question, my statement is, people who pay more out-of-pocket will achieve better outcomes. And by the way, we got psychology research from the 60s that will prove that. So I believe I know where this is headed. Everybody's done the freaking research for me. And this is what I talk about going outside of our industry. Psychology, sales, everybody's done all this damn research for us. We sit here and say it can't be done. It won't be done. This gray, see all this gray? This is from repeating the same thing over and over.
Okay, but what do we take from that then? I mean, like, what's kind of the so what then with that? You know, like, what if we do find out that if people are paying more, that they're getting better outcomes? I mean, ethically, you can't. I don't know. Like, what do you do with that?
Understand what you're selling, and make sure people know up front what you're selling, and let people make a choice. That's what I'm doing with that. So, by the way, so I just gave you the example of the person that works for me. So guess what else happens on that first phone call? Hi, this is Jerry at San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy. May I help you? Yeah, I want to schedule physical therapy. That's great. I want to be able to help you out. I run him through about 7 questions. When you tell me the most important thing to you is that I'm in network and only have to pay your $25 copay that you know you have, you think you're going to be my best customer? No. And guess what? I'm going to help you find a place that will accommodate you in network. I got great relationships with other clinics in town, all of them. I send patients to about 3 other clinics in town. When you say, look, I hear what you're telling me, but price is the most important thing to me, I say, I hear you. And because you called me and I want to make sure you get good physical therapy, here's a place I want you to go. Because they'll be able to deliver on what you need. McDonald's and In-N-Out Burger don't deliver on the same product, by the way. They're both hamburger joints. They don't deliver on the same product. The In-N-Out Burger and McDonald's in my hometown in Napa shares a parking lot. You think either of them freaking care? No. They don't care. Because the target market is completely different. So again, the big so is it's going to save you a lot of time and energy of not getting people in, getting them scheduled for an eval, and then having them schedule every other visit, and not valuing the physical therapy you're delivering. And again, my model I described, because I'm going to get someone who reaches out to me and sends me an email, goes, you don't like PT assistance in AIDS? You don't believe in PT assistance in AIDS? And I'll say, no, I didn't say that. What I said was my model was what I developed was something based on putting someone in touch with a PT so they can get better quicker. I think we're digressing a little bit here. But you've got to understand where this argument's coming from. It's to get people on and off the phone sooner so that they can get to where they need sooner. We treat everybody exactly the same. And you can't, they're not. They're not. There's the whole psychological component. Once people know what they're getting into and what value you have to give them, I guarantee you their whole course of care will go quicker. Even the in-network person. Say, oh yeah, I understand, finances are most important. Let's get you to that in-network clinic quicker and get you scheduled. And by the way, I know the owner, so if they say they can't schedule you for 2 weeks, call me back. I'll help you get into their clinic quicker. Who the hell does that? Did I digress?
No,
No,
that
I
was
think
great.
that's great. Well, and that certainly improves your own reputation of the clinic then in and of itself. And then it's like, okay, well, why aren't I going to your clinic instead?
So I talked about social platforms and social media and social proof. I didn't talk about social proof. Do you know I just had a guy promise me a positive Yelp review who never came in for physical therapy? Sit on that one for a while. If everybody tells you it's about outcomes, oh, it's about getting better, only patients, they call you because they want to get better. I got a list of people who have called and referred me people who have never stepped foot into my clinic. And it's because of the way we treat them on the front end. It's the questions we ask so we don't waste their frickin' time. They don't go on hold. They don't go in a phone tree. They don't get scheduled 3 weeks out. They don't show up and go, what the, I didn't know I was going to pay $150 a visit. I thought I had a $25 copay. Those people don't show up in my clinic. And I let them know that up front, and they appreciate that. I had a guy, I reached out to him and said, look, I'm sorry I couldn't accommodate you, but I want to be able to help you get somewhere right for you. There was dead air, and he said, oh my God, that is probably the most ethical thing anybody could have done for me. And I sat there, and I sat on that for like 2 days, and I'm like, he's damn right. And why was he so freaking surprised someone wanted to help him in healthcare? I was like, how sad is that?
Truly.
All right, ask me. You guys, don't you guys have some examples reaching out to people? I think you shared some.
In reaching out to people like on Twitter?
Yeah, and networking, and this was about networking and selling PT. So do you guys, oh, you know what? That was the question I was answering. Because you guys, right, as students. So you guys need to ask people lots of questions, and I guarantee you guys will learn better how to couch an argument for physical therapy than any physical therapist can ever tell you. Ask your family, what do you know about physical therapy? I don't know anything. What do you expect out of Chiro? This is what I expect. Why do you expect that? Okay, let me think about that. You know, what do we deliver? Right, and start thinking about those things and coming up with discussions that aren't just handing people goddamn research articles. The public doesn't want research. I got 2 examples for you, cigarettes and Coca-Cola. You think if research mattered, anybody'd be smoking or drinking Coke?
Kaboom.
People?
Freaking kaboom, man. Hashtag kaboom.
So, and I get real excited about this and I get real passionate, but you know, after 47 years and after joining business groups and seeing how other industries and are successful, healthcare has had their head up their ass for way too long, and we've got to quit. You know, that's the Einstein quote. The level of consciousness and the level of thinking that got us here is not going to get us out of it. And we keep going back and saying, well before, right? And if anybody does take anything away from this about selling anything, people have choices, and they have choices in healthcare. Spell out what the difference is and let them make a choice. And if they choose the Chiro, don't blame the Chiro. Don't blame the Chiro, for God's sakes. Don't blame crappy evidence. Right? Read a psychology book, for God's sakes. All right.
Hi, Jerry, I got another question for you. We're in the theme of selling PT. How do we better sell PT to ourselves? With such a low membership rate in the APTA, what gives there, and how do we sell it to ourselves better?
Stop me if you've heard this one before. The good news is this answer is going to be short and sweet.
Good.
I've reached out to APTA on some of this stuff. APTA has to sell the three of you on the value of membership, do they not?
Yep.
So it's absolutely no different than anything else. Why? Because being just being part. Well, I'll tell you. Actually, I'm a member because I believe my small part of contributing to something bigger is my value add back. What do I get from APTA? No, I get access to people. I get a couple other things, but the value add I get from APTA is I feel like I'm contributing. So again, APTA has to make me feel good about being a member and that they value my membership, and I believe they do. You know, people answer my phone calls, return my emails. Jason Bellamy from APTA Tweets was on my Twitter panel, so I'm like, APTA, values what I bring to the game. That's important to me. But now, Tyler, they have to deliver on what you value. And Laura, they have to deliver on what you value. And Jocelyn, they have to deliver. So they have to get the word out about the different things because they deliver on more than one value for a lot of people.
Sure.
You got to get the word out. And they have to have people like the four of us, sharing. What do I value? That's how they do it. And it's a marketing campaign, and it's a PR campaign, and it's absolutely, by the way, no freaking different than what I do, to grow my business. People have to understand when they call what value I give them. And by the way, there's your networking theme. You have to make sure, and when you're on Twitter, and there are a couple people on Twitter, man, I know what they value. I can't wait till some of these people show up in my office one of these days. Because who you are on Twitter is about what's important to you and what you value, right? So again, the only rule on Twitter is there are no rules. Just know what your goals are and know what you want to achieve from it. That was that conversation a handful of us got in about a month ago about a personal account and a professional account.
Oh, yeah.
Unless your professional account is a total hidden, anonymous account, then they're both the same, right? Yeah. What am I going to make? I told people the other day my cynical account was Jerry Durham PT, on Twitter. And right, I've never done anything anonymous. That's just me. But so it's never going to be separate. So if so guess who takes care of my clinic tweets? Not me, right? Not me. And I take care of my personal stuff. And tell people I've tweeted out 55,000 tweets. I guarantee you I've deleted 50,000 tweets. I've typed shit in and went, not a good idea.
So I don't know if you guys have another question, but since we're getting close to the end, we've had a couple requests to hear your reading lists. On what you're reading right now, Jerry, or what you would recommend for reading.
So hold on. You guys talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Okay. He's going to go collect up a bunch of books. Wait for it, team. It's going to be good.
So I did leave one book out, and this is my favorite, and Kenny out of Massachusetts knows this. So this is my favorite, Charlie Munger, Poor Charlie's Almanac. Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's business partner, and Charlie Munger is a brilliant, brilliant man, and if nothing else, you guys all got to go on the internet and go to Farnam Street blog, farnamstreet.com, and find the Charlie Munger article on how to argue. Because if more people read that, we'd have a lot less BS going on. I'm reading Confessions of a Sociopath. Brilliant book. This was actually sent to me by someone. Cynic, Letters from a Stoic. He was a great philosopher. I got to tell you, if you just sit down, I read this on Sunday mornings when it's really quiet and just me and the dogs before my wife gets up, because, man, there's a lot of wisdom and insight in here. And then the other one was a book I actually won from the EMI booth at CSM a couple years ago. It's called Compelling People, and the difference physically, mentally, everything in compelling people. So those are the 4 books sitting by. You know the funny thing? Check out if you can see. All of them are like exactly the same spot. So I'm like halfway through every book.
Nice.
So that is my reading list right now. And if I could recommend one book to anybody, it'd be the Charlie Munger book right now. The Charlie Munger book, because the guy is just brilliant. And I don't care what you... It's not about him being a billionaire. It's just about all his thought processes. And he writes about how to read and how to write and how to remember things. And it's just brilliant.
So I feel like we've talked a lot about selling ourselves as students and then selling as far as in a private practice kind of situation, but what do you think are the most important lessons for people in other kind of practices, like maybe just working for a hospital, things like that? What kind of lessons can they take away and apply to their daily lives to improve PT?
You know, we get in these discussions all the time about who's engaged and who's not engaged. And I get in these discussions about what it means to be a professional and our, as in each individual, every one of us, our obligation to a profession. And that if you don't want to meet those obligations, then go do something else because you're just wasting our time. So what I would like everybody to think about, regardless of setting, and let me go back, I got relationships with everybody in about every single setting you can name, you could come up with, probably some you don't even know PTs are working in. And I see people doing good things to get the word out to the public about what the value is that PT brings to that part of healthcare. But I also see them pushing out on social media a lot of research that that show the value from a monetary time, from a cost-saving side of physical therapy. So I see them doing a lot of good things. So my whole thing is, no matter what setting you're working in, understand you're representing the profession of physical therapy. And boy, let me tell you, I've been out 21 years, and I spent a hell of a lot less money and a hell of a lot less time than you guys did. And so if you're going to spend a minimum of 3 years in school and the 6 figures you guys are going to spend to get out here, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to deliver and you know, from your small little world, my small little world, we owe it to ourselves to deliver something out there to the profession. Again, remember, my value to the APTA is that I feel valued, right? And so I give back to it. What can I do? I don't know. I can have a Twitter panel and put APT on there. That's the way I can give back to them. So we're all part of a you know, big whole, and we're greater, right? We're greater in our numbers, and that's my whole challenge with, you know, people say, well, APTA sucks and we're only at 30%. Okay, let's get it up to 70%. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then frickin' don't be a member anymore. But accept the challenge, step up, bring it up to 70%. Let's see what we can do, you know, as a group in Washington and each individual state. That's my answer.
Nice.
I think those were great closing thoughts, but does anyone else have anything, or are there any more Twitter questions?
No, people like your book list.
Okay. Good.
So.
Yeah, I think that's all I see on Twitter also. Give a shameless plug to the Giants who are playing tonight, right, Jerry?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Now, just sit tight, people. We'll get out of our months that start with J Funk. Just right that to the end. I thought it was just for June, but I figured out it's actually a June-July funk. So we'll be out of it soon. Sit tight. And you know, if we're not, I will. You'll be the first to know from me that they're still playing shitty. So, oh, you know, hey, here's an interesting thought that Allie on Twitter posted. She goes to school in hold on, what's officially the name of the school? Toro in Nevada. And you know, I love this. I actually love this statement. Some people get pissed off, but you get what you pay for. And what I would argue is you get what you value, right? Because I'll pay a boatload of money for something I value, and then I use the argument, well, I get what I pay for. Well, what I did was I'm just justifying it emotionally, but I'm happy with it. It's served to me, right? Whatever my end goal was, I'm happy as hell. So you get what you pay for. You get what you value. And we have to let people know, here's the take home, by the way, we have to let people know that they have a choice. You realize most people, there are people who call me and go, oh, I didn't know I could choose my physical therapist. I didn't know I could go out and network. I didn't know, this and that. And I am the first one educating them on that. By the way, that makes me feel really good because I feel like I'm part of the solution to healthcare in general. Oh, I didn't know I could go out and network. It's like you can do whatever you want. It's your body. It's your choice. It's your money. You want to spend money? Yeah, sure, I'm willing to spend my money. Well, then F your insurance. You can go wherever you want. So there you go. It's about choice. It's about value. It's about talking to our customers. It's about being part of a bigger whole. It's about joining a profession. It's all those things. And Twitter and Facebook and GChat has been a huge, great platform for getting the word out and meeting great people like you guys. And by the way, don't get me wrong, I love meeting like-minded people. I used to not say this for a while because it just sounded self-serving, but I'm like, well, it is self-serving. But I love meeting like-minded people out there. And I've struck up some awesome relationships with people that want to solve healthcare and who believe we got to push this thing forward and, we got to challenge the status quo. And, for the record, I'm not cynical, PT, but he and I have a great relationship. I'm not going to lie to anybody. We have a great relationship off here. And I see exactly what he's trying to do. We're both trying to achieve the same thing. And so guess what? He'll touch a bunch of people, and I'll touch a bunch of other people, and we'll all end up in the same place. So be it.
That's right.
That's funny.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it and giving me, let's face it, I love a venue to chat and share my ideas and talk. So.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks
for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us, Jerry. We certainly do appreciate it, as always.
Good.
Anyone have any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's a wrap for tonight.
That's a wrap for tonight. Stay
Thank
tuned
you
for
to everyone.
chat.
The video will be posted to watch in later times, and it'll be shared around Twitter. So thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Good night.